Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch, and welcome today to my review of the latest release by Orient, the Stretto chronograph. It's a clean, stylish, well-spec'd and very well-priced chrono that, just like the Bambino, could well end up being the new benchmark in its category. Now, you saw the pop-up? This video is sponsored by Watch Nation. Watch Nation are an online and bricks and mortar retailer in the UK, and they have the exclusivity on the Strettos in that market. They're also the people behind Cestrian watches, so not only do they sell great value watches, but they also make great value watches of their own. I will of course leave a link to their website in the description of the video, and a discount code getting you 25% off the price of this Orient. It's not an affiliate code, there's nothing in it at all for me, just a tasty discount in it for you. So what is so good about the Stretto then? Well, there's not a whole lot wrong with it, especially given the price that they're asking. The packaging is fairly standard nondescript Orient box. If you have ever bought a Komatsu or indeed a Bambino, it will look very familiar to you. Now, Watch Nation sent me 3 of these, but I kept one with all the stickers on to point out 2 very important features. So important, in fact, that Orient themselves choose to highlight them with those little extra paper tags. The first is sapphire crystal. Most Japanese brands are still giving you mineral crystal at this price point. Orient rather broke that mold with the Komatsu, and they have continued it with this Stretto. The other spec that warrants its own tag is the fact that this chrono is solar powered. I'm personally a big fan of solar powered watches. Indeed, I did my top 10 affordable solar watches video only a few short weeks ago. Had this Orient been released then, it would have made that list for sure. Now, you're not getting a mechanical chronograph for this price, at least not from Japan anyway, so if you're going to go quartz, there's a fairly strong argument that you may as well go solar quartz. Now, Orient are not as commonly associated with that technology, certainly not as commonly as Seiko and Citizen are anyway, but they still do it, and they do it well. I've talked about price a couple of times already, but I haven't told you what the prices of these watches actually are. They are £270 sterling with a 2-year warranty from Watch Nation. However, as discussed, there's a 25% discount code in the description of the video. That takes the price down to £202.50. That's actually pretty good. That is a third of the price of a Seiko speed timer. Now, I know the two watches aren't directly comparable. The Seiko's definitely sportier and more solid feeling, but that's a huge price gulf for 2 Japanese solar chronos that are meant to be affordable and accessible. So just what does this Orient Stretto offer then? Well, it offers a very pleasant and wearable set of dimensions for a start, including a diameter of 39.7, thickness of only 11.3, and a lug-to-lug of 48. That's perhaps just a little longer than you might expect, but you'll see it doesn't affect the on-wrist experience. Lug width is 20, so thankfully it's different from the Bambino in that regard. The bracelet tapers down to 18, back up to 20 at the clasp, and as sized for my 7-inch wrist, it weighs in at 116 grams. Water resistance is 50 meters, which is fine. Crystal is flat sapphire, which is also fine, and the movement in the back of this one is a VS752. Now, I had to do a bit of digging to find that out. It's not actually on the Watch Nation website, but it's the same movement that powers the Mako solar chronograph. It has the same 3 registers and that awkward date at 4:30. Now, the instruction manual for the VS752 is 255 pages long. So it's just as well that I don't read instruction manuals, isn't it? Let's be honest, it barely needs one at all, let alone one that big. It's the usual basic quartz parameters, so plus or minus 20 seconds per month accuracy. There's a low battery life indicator, and when fully charged, it will operate for 6 months in total darkness if you happen to find yourself living in total darkness for the next 6 months. One push of the top pusher starts the central chronograph hand ticking, which by the way ticks 5 times per second, far more attractive than a standard single ticker. One push of the top pusher to stop, one push of the bottom pusher to slow reset. It can also time lapse if you press the top pusher, then the bottom, and then the bottom again to catch up. bottom to reset. It's a 60-minute chrono timer, so that's the register down at the 6. It's a small second indicator over at the 9, and a 24-hour indicator at the 3, which serves only one purpose, that being to balance out the other two indicators. Actually, that's not quite fair. The solar cell is hidden underneath that base layer of the dial, so the 24-hour sub-register at least does allow a little bit more light penetration. The case is very, very simple. It's a £200 Japanese solar chronograph with sapphire, so there are inevitable compromises on build quality, including a distinct lack of complexity with the case and the polishing. It's a high polished side, there's a nice chamfer running from the lug tip back up to the point where the bezel meets the mid case. There's a little bit of fine circular brushing on the upper lug surfaces as well. There's a signed push-pull crown and a pair of plunger-style chronograph pushers, which are a nice touch. As discussed, 48 is relatively long for a sub 40, but the lugs do point down and the whole case angles down as well, so it fits the wrist nicely. Bracelet, the bracelet. The bracelet is also a bit of a compromise to say the least. It's meant to look like a 5-link flat Jubilee style, but those links are just singles and they're held together by push pins. Female end links though definitely help offset that slightly long lug to lug, but they are hollow end links, and the whole bracelet kind of squeaks and rattles a bit, which is hardly the mark of a luxury timepiece, is it? Neither is a cheap press clasp like this one with only 2 available positions. There are, however, options to buy this one on a leather strap though if you balk at the thought of hollow end links and a press clasp. In fact, let's have a look at those options now. Watch Nation have 3 colours in stock and they sent me one of each for this video. Sadly, I have to send 2 of them back. There's an aquamarine, a silver white and a dark navy blue. Now the colours are a little bit darker, I feel, than they are in these pictures. But there are also 3 other colour versions that they currently have on pre-order. A rose gold with that perforated leather strap, a 2-tone yellow gold, or should that be a 2-tone yellow gold tone if you see what I mean, plus an all gold tone. Those 3 are slightly more expensive though, and like I said, they are currently still on pre-order. But let's leave those other colours to one side at the moment and let's have a look at the dial and hands of the 3 colours that I was sent, focusing particularly on this shade of aquamarine. That is my preference of the 3. Now all indices are applied and they're actually rather complex. They're high polished silver double batons with tapering sides and vertical stripes to the upper surfaces for a little bit of extra light play. The indices at 3, 6 and 9 are slightly short to make way for the subdials, and there's a slightly larger, slightly longer tapered index at 12. There are tiny loom plots beyond all of those indices, by the way, as you'll see in just a second. The 3 sub-registers are ringed in silver, and it's the usual foil pressed Orient logo with the brand name and chronograph printed in a rather pleasing italic script. But save for a few other tiny markings denoting the Japanese movement, the dial is thankfully free of additional verbiage. Frankly, there's no space to put it anyway. The main dial surface on this one is a kind of sunburst effect, and there are recessed concentric circles on its outer edge, which those applied indices kind of sit on top of. They almost bridge the gap between the main dial surface and the printed minute markers beyond them. The sub-register hands are very, very simple, but the main hour and minute hand are actually quite pleasant. They're big, they're kind of high polished tapering swords with a bevel down the middle and plenty of loom. For a budget dial, overall, it's really rather nice. There's plenty going on here, but it never feels kind of gaudy or overcooked. And everything that Orient has decided to do, it has done very nicely. Loom then, 2 main hands and edges of the dial only. And when I turn the speed up, it kind of hangs on gamely for about 15 minutes, then decides it's had enough, the show's over, and promptly vanishes en masse. The loom therefore is, not amazing. Where this Stretto really shines though is the on-wrist experience. I may have had a pop at the bracelet, and indeed I may have another pop at the bracelet shortly, but at least it's comfortable. It's a nicely proportioned watch overall, and it sits well on wrist thanks to that curved mid-case and the downward turn to those slightly long lugs. 150 grams or thereabouts is not an awful lot of weight for a stainless steel watch of this size, and I'm fine with wearing this style of watch a little bit looser, a little bit lower towards the knuckle as a consequence. Now, legibility Readability will vary depending on which colour version you go for. Of the three that I was sent, I would say that the dark blue is the most legible, the silver white is the least legible, and the aquamarine is somewhere in between. This is all purely based on the contrast between the dial colour and the silver handset. The hands really pop against the dark sub-registers though on all of the different colour versions, a consequence of having those kind of photovoltaic cells hiding underneath. Alright, moans and niggles. Well, as discussed, it's a £200 Japanese big brand watch. And if you have bought a £200 Japanese big brand watch before, you kind of know what you're going to get. And what you're going to get is a great brand, an in-house movement, and in this case you get sapphire crystal, which I cannot overstate how important that is to me personally. I would so much rather have sapphire than mineral. But what you also get is a pretty simply finished case and a pretty cheap feeling bracelet. The 2 holes of adjustment on the clasp is at least 2 holes too few, and hollow end links. Hollow end links should be something you tell your grandkids you remember, not something you actually have to contend with on a brand new big brand watch in 2024. Plus, the whole thing just kind of squeaks and rattles, which is just not nice, is it? And I know that Japanese companies pretty much insist on putting date complications on everything. Orient, for example, has been making the Bambino for more than a decade, but they've only just released their first ever no-date version. But a date complication squeezed in on the angle at 4:30 is only ever going to be one thing, that thing being awkward. But considering the brand and considering the sapphire crystal, I still think you're getting a decent amount of watch for your money with this one. Not at full retail obviously, but with 25% discounts already available on a brand new watch, I suspect nobody is going to be paying full retail for this one. At £200 then, the Stretto is a really strong offering compared to similarly priced entry-level solar chronos from both Seiko and Citizen. It looks good, there's a bunch of nice and varied colour options to choose from, and it would make a super reliable grab and go daily or rotation piece that's always going to be set at the right time when you need it to be. Time will tell if this one is going to be even a fraction as popular as the Bambino, but it definitely warrants a recommendation if you're looking for an affordable, reliable Japanese solar chrono. So there you have it, well done for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you want to see another Orient from Watch Nation, click here, or its arch rival from Seiko, the speed timer, click here. Thanks for watching this one, I'll see you again in the next one.